Good evening, folks. Back again for another evening of F# live coding. I think today we will be finishing up on our little app we've been building, the playtime tally, which counts how many hours I spent playing video games in my life. Let me drop directly to the code. There we go. So where did we leave off last time? We left off here. We were tallying up the hours per category for all the games, and we were using a bold over a list, something you typically see when you have to accumulate stuff in functional programming languages. There was one thing that did not sit very right with me when looking at this or while working with this, and it was this playtimes thing we defined. So let's quickly go to the type definition of a search result. Yep. So right now, a search result, which is something we get back from how long to beat, it returns the title of the game and a list of all the playtimes. And a playtime is like a tuple of a category, like just the main story or the main story and side quests. And if we have it, or if the how long to beat website returns it, decimal representing the time, or an option of a decimal, because it can be absent for some games, or for a certain category for a game can be absent. What I did not like about the way we modeled this is it's a list with tuples, and every tuple has a category. So it's basically a lookup table, a C# dictionary, or in F#, it's called a map, but it's basically a lookup table. So maybe one of the small refactors I want to do today is refactor this from a list to something else. And I'm still on the fence between, like, should we use a lookup table or should we use a record type? I think I might want to go for a record type, because if you go to tally, that's the code we just wrote, we actually have something similar. When we're tallying up all the scores, we have this record, also called tally, but never mind. We have this record which represents like the 3 categories. And when we add up playtimes for every game in our collection, the optionality or the option type disappears, because we want to have a decimal value for every category. So I think to get this stream started nice and slowly, it's been a long day at work already. I've been drawing chart.js graphs in the front end all day, so it's good to be back in some backend code. I don't know if you can see this very well, but no, is it readable, the text? There we go. Props, chat, if someone can recognize this image. It's very niche. So let's start the session with a refactoring. I'm gonna go to my Trello board. So this was actually the task I'm discussing. So model the playtimes differently than what we've been doing right now. So let's take it away. It is in the parsing module. And we would like to get rid of the list. And there it is. We would like to provide some more structure for this. I was thinking of doing this like very conservatively without breaking the code, as I would do in C#. There's several like mechanical steps you can take to do refactorings like this, and if you are interested in knowing more, I think if you Google Blicky from Martin Fowler, parallel change, that's a very great article explaining one of the ways you can it's not by Martin Fowler himself, it's by a collaborator, but these concepts of parallel change refactorings are a great technique to learn if you're working in big code bases and you want to do like breaking changes or breaking API changes of some of your modules or classes or even APIs. They present like steps on how to do this, how to roll out breaking changes in a non-breaking way, or in a way that you can handle deploying it without having to deploy all clients or all consumers of your code. But when I was playing around with this the other day in F#, it's actually really hard to do, because that typically depends on these micro refactorings, or these strategic refactorings depend on the ability to have null values or like optional method arguments and stuff like that. And that's actually something that is discouraged to do in F#, and even the compiler complains if you try to assign null to record types or variables typed to the record type. So actually it's, I think, almost impossible to do like parallel change style refactorings in F#. So instead, I want to do something that is encouraged by the F# ecosystem, which is leaning on the compiler. We're just gonna change the types and follow the compiler down the rabbit hole until everything compiles and everything, the tests turn green again. So let's just do that. So instead of a list of playtimes, I'm gonna model this as a record type. So let's define a new record type. If my fingers warm up, it's a bit cold here, a bit chilly. December in Belgium. I think we're hitting below 0 degrees Celsius at night now. Yeah, I think so. So I'm just gonna define a record type which contains properties for each of these 3 cases. So I don't know if we'll need the category union type anymore. Let's keep it around for now, but we'll see. And why I'm doing this is because the massaging of the data, I'd rather have my parsing logic do it than the actual business logic. So that's why I'm doing that down here. Because it's not a big thing or a big calculation, it's just structuring the data we parse from the HTML a bit differently. Okay, there we go. And so this list of playtimes becomes a playtimes record, and there's already some compiler errors here. Cool. Am I gonna get rid of the thing we have here? No, I'm gonna flag it with a to do. There we go. And I'm just gonna build, see where the compiler takes me. I expect some test code to break, and and we already know that this module itself is breaking. Let's take a quick look already why it's breaking down here. Oh yeah, that's where we built the actual object. So now this is a list of playtimes, and we would like to we would like to transform it, into that playtimes record type. Whoa, there's a lot of breakages in the tests, in the tally code itself. Oh yeah, it's true, that's where we use it. So let's start where we are. Let's start here. I'm just gonna make sure that everything compiles and the tests turn green again, and we'll take it from there. So how can we go from this list to a record type? Let's just take a step in between and make a lookup table of this list. So it's map of list of sec whatever. There we go. So this is now a lookup table, a map, sorry. And we can build the playtimes object or the playtimes record with by looking up the values in that playtimes map. So main and extras, no, main story, that's the first one. There we go, no. Oh dear. IntelliSense, please work with me. Okay, so that's just the lookup of playtimes. And we're trying to find the main story, that's the union case. Compiler is now helping us and saying that we need to assign all the fields in this record type. So let's do it exactly that way. Why am I seeing 2? Yeah, okay. Parentheses are not lining up. But I hope my formatter springs into action in a second. I'm just gonna duplicate this line 3 times. That's faster. And correct everything. And completionist is the third category we have. So we'll look up the completionist data. Okay. It's time for a laptop upgrade. If Visual Studio is becoming a problem with a solution this small, dat beloofd is what I say over here. It's not a promising start. Wow, it's really bad. I'm actually a bit surprised as to the number of compiler errors we get in the test code. Typically that's a smell that I'm depending too much on the structure of my code under test. Let's see if we have to do something about that. So let's take a look at maybe first the actual code that's still not correct. So this is where we use the playtimes that we're refactoring right now. And this is now our record instead of a list. So instead of having lookups everywhere here, we can just dot into the correct thing. So here we do, where do we use main? Main, right here. So instead of looking the list or looking into the list, we can just use the record type we just defined. So search result.playtimes dot and main story. That would provide the same. And it's the same for the 2 other categories, so everything here can go. Let's copy paste this. And have the main and extras selected here, and the completion is down there. Why is there a green squiggly mark? What is this? Ah, okay. That's an interesting remark. It's saying that it doesn't know which type this is actually. It's ambiguous. Because we have this tally here, which has decimals, and the thing we're building right now, or the thing we're refactoring towards, which has decimal options. So I'm not entirely sure why the compiler finds this like similar types. The fact that there are options of decimals, I would assume it to like figure out which type we're representing here. But it's not, so let's give it a type hint. This is returning a tally. Okay, so compiler is happy again here. I think the only thing to do is drop into our tests and see what's breaking there. Yeah, and that's the painful part. When I wrote these tests a few sessions back, I just used the record types and the constructors themselves. And that's fine as long as those types stay the same, but if your types change and you write your tests directly on constructors or on the data constructors, you get stuff like this, like test breakages everywhere just because you refactored some structure. In C#, I would tackle this by introducing maybe a builder pattern or using a library that builds code without having to depend on the constructor and stuff like that. But for this little project, that might be overkill, so I'm just gonna I'll do the refactoring manually here and keep it just as is. So let's move the list definition out of here and just assign fields of the new record type. So the list syntax can go. Yeah, and this is something we'll have to do a lot. Cool. Okay. I have colleagues that like know all these cool shortcuts and tricks and regular expression hacks to do this in 5 seconds. I've never been good at regular expressions and stuff like that. But I'm open for suggestions if you know of a faster way to do like rote changes, simple changes that require little to no thought. I'm always open for suggestions. So yeah, this is quite impactful actually. When I was writing these tests, this was not a scenario I had in mind. That is one test already in the green, or at least compiling again. This is a test case for games that are not out yet. Breath of the Wild 2, for example. So any video gamers in chat today? I'm currently playing Dying Light, first person zombie survival game. It's I find it a bit too scary. I'm not like the biggest fan of horror games. I don't know why I keep playing them. Sorry, I need another brace. Almost through. There we go, there we go. Interesting, what's the problem here? Formatting maybe? No assignment for the field main access. Yes, it's a formatting issue. It's you don't have to write a lot of parentheses and semicolons in F#, which is cool if everything lines up. But if you're doing stuff like this and the annotation goes off or goes wrong or some lines, you're in for a wild ride most of the time. Especially if you combine it with like an auto formatting tool or a tool that formats your code layout on save. You could be in for a surprise. Okay, that's the last one already. So this is totally different than what I'm used to. In C# world, I would take like a small step, verify whether everything compiles, whether all my tests are green. And this leaning on the compiler style of refactoring. It's everything's broken until it isn't. And hopefully when it compiles, it's proven correct, as they say in Haskell sometimes. We'll find out sooner. Should this refactoring be okay, I would like to quickly run it against my full dataset, so against all my collections or games in my collection, because I think we might have done more than a mechanical refactoring, or we're digging into the object now in a way that we have not done before. Where is it? The map and the lookup. Yeah, this map.find. I don't think we ever did a .find. So I just want to make 100% sure that we haven't invalidated any, or we haven't introduced any new assumptions about the third-party services we're using. Tests are green. Everything compiles. So yeah, let's run it against the full dataset. As we're running close to the end of this series, I'm going to not have it print out the total times. That would be a spoiler. So yeah, let's run this. Takes a minute or so. What this code is doing now is it's parsing a CSV file containing my entire video game collection. Let's maybe open it up. So this looks somewhat like this. I use a website called groovy.com to list my played games. And you can export a CSV file like this. And this is a file we parse. And then for every game we have in here, we query the website called howlongtobeat.com to look up the playtimes. And we do some web scraping because they don't really provide a very clean API. They provide no API. And when we scraped those results, we just combine games from Groovy with games from How Long to Beat. And then we know for every game that I have finished playing how long it takes a typical player in each of these three categories you've seen today. And then we just add them up and hopefully get a impressive earning. You completed 10 games. That is way less than I was expecting. I was expecting something in the order of there we go. I played like 300 plus video games. So I hard-coded like a maximum limit of 10 there. Let's get rid of that. I assume that everything will just automatically work. And let's take a quick look at what might be the next step to take. Oh yeah, it's a functional change or an improvement. For recent games, we don't have playtimes in every category. But if you're like summing up every playtime in the completionist category, it makes sense to use another category that has values. I'll give an example real soon. So yeah, now we're spamming howlongtobeat.com for every game in my collection, or every finished game in my collection, and querying for playtimes. Very relaxing to see all the games you finished in your career fly by. Every time I run my app, I hear these errors or the Windows error sound. That's a bit disconcerting. And I have no idea what's happening. I see no exceptions, nothing. Oh no. Visual Studio is popping up, which means we might have a problem. We have a problem. Interesting. So it is not a purely mechanical refactoring. We're actually regressed or introduced a bug. Or maybe the bug was always there and it's now super obvious. That could also be the case. Okay, so given key was not in the dictionary, which means that we have a game without playtimes. I have never seen this before on the website. Do we have a bug or do we have an actual... Am I that much of a hipster that I play video games that have no official playtimes logged? I don't think so. Just cause 2 multiplayer mod. That sounds like a... That sounds like something that might just not have playtimes. Let's do a quick search on howlongtobeat.com. This is an edge case we have not encountered yet. What? It's totally different. It has totally different categories, co-op versus. 2 ways we can handle this. No, I was thinking maybe we can parse these categories, but I don't. For the app we're building, I don't care at all about these categories, or at least not for Just Cause, the multiplayer mod. So I'm just going to treat this as no playtimes logged, because I don't even have multiplayer mod in my collection. It's something we get back from How Long to Beat, because we probably query Just Cause 2. Excuse me. But I don't care about all the expansions and all the DLC. I just want to know the playtime for the original game. This is the actual webpage we're scraping, by the way. That's why we are also parsing this multiplayer mod thing. So yeah, we don't care if it does not have a category, we treat it as has no playtimes for that category. So let's implement that quickly. Maybe that has to be killed in Visual Studio. Yeah. Okay. Thinking that maybe it's a good case to write a test for as well. Yes. Yes, that's a good case to write a test for. And since we have an actual live example, I'm going to copy paste the actual live example. So I'm gonna do the query again and then grab the HTML that we get back. This is how we've been developing the app, or the scraping part at least. So why do anything different? Just gonna format it a bit because it looks like an unholy mess of HTML. Always hurts my eye a bit to see unholy formatted code. I'm just opening Visual Studio Code, which is more lightweight than Visual Studio, and for stuff like formatting, it's my go-to tool. What's it called? Language mode, yeah, that was what I was looking for. Let's put this in HTML and let's format document. Shift-Alt-F, okay. No, Shift-Alt-F is totally not working. Why is it? Okay. No formatter for HTML installed. That's a lie. That's actually a lot of HTML. Yeah, but this is the one we're looking for. Just Cause 2 multiplayer mod. So I'm gonna get rid of the Just Cause 2. That's a case we can parse perfectly fine. And this is the problem case. Yes, it is. So let's grab that and let's try the test for it. Drop to the tests. Where are our parsing tests? Yeah, this is the how long to beat test module, which we've been using to write all our parsing tests. Let's just add another one. Don't have my snippets installed yet. It's Visual Studio 22, the new one. So let me quickly hammer out the test name. There's a lot of duplication in the descriptions I'm noticing. Maybe that's something to clean up, or that I would clean up were this code I would be seeing for more than a week. I'm gonna think about a better name in just a sec. I just want to copy paste this HTML before I accidentally lose it. Oh yeah, one thing we have to do is escape those double quotes. So I'm just gonna do that before I copy paste. If my keyboard will allow me. Okay, there we go. So just replace all the double quotes with escaped double quotes. It's not a request, it's a response. And let's just put it in here as a test case. I'm just gonna make the compiler happy. Okay. So what's the name of this test case? Parsing HTTP responses with missing playtime categories. There we go. So normally we have 3 categories: main story content plus side quests, and the completionist. If we look at Just Cause 2 multiplayer mod, we see co-op and versus, so we see none of these 3. Let me quickly take a look at how we do these kinds of tests in the other cases. So we parse the HTML and we get a list of something back. Yeah, that's something we will have here as well. But instead of an empty list, we get a single search response back, which represents the Just Cause 2 thing. Or no, it will even crash because that's the bug we were seeing. but let's just finish writing this test then. So what does this function return? Search result list. So let's build a search result. It's something with a title, and it'll grab this title from the HTML. No, it's not true. It will grab this title from the HTML. And the playtimes, which is the new record type we introduced at the beginning of this session, which is a record type with 3 properties: main story, main extras, and completionist. And for this game, or for this mod at least, we have nothing. So none in all 3 cases. Thanks for the auto format. So this test will compile and it will crash because we have not implemented this this edge case yet, or at least that's what I hope will happen in just a second. I saw an update to JetBrains Rider, the alternative to Visual Studio, enter my computer this morning, and I was really excited because maybe they fixed their problems they were having with F#6, but they were not. It's still not completely okay, so I'm still stuck with Visual Studio for the time being. Okay, it's failing with a... I'm surprised because I see this like true exception. I don't know what that means. So let's take a look at the full printout, but I would expect this to actually crash. What you're seeing here is a library called Unquote, which everything you put in between these funny brackets, it will evaluate it step by step. So if you have 1 + 2 + 3 = 5, it'll evaluate that mathematical formula or that sum step by step. So you can see every step in between in the output when something goes wrong, which is why you're seeing a lot of these steps. This is like the first step, and then we have a second step, stuff like that. Oh yeah, there's the error. So we have a key not found, which is exactly what we were hoping. This is the bug we saw a while ago while running for the entire collection. Now, how do we fix this? Where is the problem actually? I think it's right around here. So map.find will actually crash if the map or the dictionary does not contain the key we're looking, and we're looking for main story and extras and stuff like that. So instead of a find, I think we can do a try find, and that returns an option, and it contains like the value we're looking for if it exists, and if the key does not exist in the map, it returns none. So that's the way you can do lookups that might fail in F#. But we don't want an option, we want an actual decimal option and not a... Sorry, we actually do want an option. So what's happening here? I'm just gonna Ctrl-Z a bit. So what is actually in this map? It's a map mapping categories to decimal options. Oh yeah, okay. Okay, so this already returns an option of a decimal, but it only returns an option of a decimal when this category exists in the map. So we can use a try find, which returns an option of a decimal, but that's one option too many, so we actually have to just say, by the way, if we don't find anything, it's none. We have no playtime. And we can do the same for each of the categories. And it's for main extras and completionist. This looks a bit funky, actually. I don't know if I like this a map with an option of an option. You have to really know what these functions do to understand what's happening. But if the tests are green, that's at least something. We can work on making it more readable or more understandable in a second. At least if the tests would build and run. Okay, there we go. Ah, still no. What's the problem? This actually looks exactly... Probably there's a typo somewhere. Oh, there is a typo. I see a colon here and there's just a space there, so I think it actually works, but we made a mistake when writing the test case. Let's drop back to the test case. It's parsing, or it's fetching the title, the game title somewhere else probably. Where is it fetching Just Cause 2 colon multiplayer mod? I don't see it. What? Let's do a text search on this string. Where does it get this string from? This is the actual output and this is the expected output. So this is what we're seeing here. And this is what we parse from this HTML. It has to be in there. Oh, there we go. It's because it's on a new line. It's throwing off my game. So here is where we're parsing the title. Okay, so that looks correct then. Let's just use the correct game title or the correct mod title and rerun our tests just to be sure. Maybe I have to take a look at nCrunch or something, a tool to run tests faster. Or didn't a ReSharper have the same? Like intelligent running of unit tests, only run tests that are affected by change? I think they already have something like that. Okay, but we're green now, so I hope we fixed that bug. Only way to know for sure is to run the app against our entire collection again, so let's just do that quickly. One of my apps for work is crashing. Let me get rid of that. There we go. And let's hope we finish the run without any new issues. And if that will be the case, we have this task we can finish. It's a really small task. And after that, I think we are feature complete. Then I would like to do a bit more end-to-end test or hexagonal architecture style tests. And then I think we can finish up this series. Cool. So this is the next problem I noticed while I was writing. Oh, is it crashing? No, it's not crashing. It's the crash sound without a crash. I'm really curious what's happening behind the scenes here. But anyway, next task is the last feature of functionality, and it is when you query for a game that is pretty recent, you don't always have categories filled in. So for example, nobody has logged playtimes for completionist style players at least, for this recent JRPG called The Caligula Effect 2. And when I'm adding up playtimes for my collection, I have finished this game, and I think I spent something like 40-50 hours as well. So I'm just, when I'm tallying up numbers and I encounter a category that is not filled in, let's try and look up like the next best category. So if we have no completionist time, let's try to fill it in with the next best category when we're adding up the playtimes for all the games, at least. Not for the parsing, does not make sense to lie in the parse result, but in the summing up of the game's playtimes. Okay, that works. We are back out of crash territory. So I'm gonna quickly check in and then let's finish up that last slice of functionality. Yep, I was curious why I saw 0, but we just hard-coded the 0 in the output. Cool. What did we do? We refactored. I'm using, when I write commit messages, I use like keywords, or at least in the teams I work with, when we establish conventions, as every commit that does a refactor has like this label of refactor, or we add the ID of the user story we're working on, stuff like that. And it's a habit I keep for personal projects as well. When you look through Git logs and you see, okay, this was a refactoring, or this was introducing a new feature, or this was an upgrade of a library, that helps to make sense of the book you're reading when you're looking at Git logs. So what did we refactor? Playtimes from a list to a record type. This surfaced a bug for games that don't have playtimes in every category. Playtimes in every category. Fix that as well. So that's pretty much what we did the last couple of hours. Let's commit that. So final part of this quest. There's some little details, like I hard-coded a list of exceptions that I would like to move to a file or a database in the future, but not today. Let's finish up this story, or this task. So we finish this. This can go, yeah. And we're gonna pick up this nicely illustrated bug report. So when tallying up playtimes, if we have a non-existent or a game with no playtime logged per category, let's try to look up the next best category if that has value. I think we can just write some unit tests for this as well. We have some tests for the tallying as well. Yeah, we do. It's funny, in Visual Studio 22 with ReSharper, you cannot navigate to your unit tests by double clicking. that is an interesting lack of a feature. I tried in JetBrains or in Rider, it works like a charm, but not yet in Visual Studio. So let's go to the tally tests, which is the name, the very poorly chosen name, or it's not a poor name. I don't like seeing tally in the function name and the module name and in the type we return. So that's what I was trying to explain. Yeah, let's try writing a test for the next best category thing. And as an entry point into our code, we probably are going to write a new function like next best category or something, or next best playtime. But I think this function, this is like the top level function of the counting up playtimes module. I think that's a good entry test for most of our unit tests as well. So let's keep the test for this edge case on this level as well. It's an interesting discussion I always have with my teams when I coach different teams. It's like, what is a unit test? What is the scope of the system under test? Is it a class? Is it a method? Is it my entire application without a database? Is it my entire application, database included? Always interesting to figure it out for a product. So we can tally up a collection with missing categories, or with games with missing categories. I'm gonna keep it simple. I'm just gonna pretend we have a collection consisting of one game. And let's say we don't have a completionist score. I'm just gonna save quickly because my formatting is all off. Okay, so we have a game with main extras and completionist is not valid, which is literally the case we're seeing for the Caligula effect. And then I think a second case would be we have a game without any category, like that mod we saw. I don't think actually we'll be needing that, because I am really not that much of a hipster, and every game I have finished, I expect it to have at least playtimes in one of these three categories. So yeah, I'm not gonna write tests for that case. Let's just see it crash and burn in production, and then we know that we have to spend money and energy fixing that bug. That's a valid strategy. You can like try to prevent failure and try to prevent crashes in production, but sometimes letting it burn, if it's small and controlled and it will not bankrupt you, that's sometimes a valid approach as well. Drifting off, let's quickly write our expected values. So it'll be for every category we do know, we tally up the results, and it's one game, so it's exactly that. And for a category where we don't have any results, we tally up the next best category. Now I'm thinking, does it make sense to have a collection with one game for this scenario? Because it's not really explicit what's happening here. 1, 2, 1, 2, 2. I'll just put it in the test name. It should take the next best. Next best is a bad phrase. The closest matching. Or the nearest category. Nearest? Yeah, let's go with it. So, yep. That should this fail? Let's call our shot here. What will this test do right now? We have not implemented anything. I don't remember how we wrote the tally code. What does it do with options? No, I can't call the shot without looking at the code, so let's look at the code. Oh, we default to 0, so we'll get 1, 2, 0 instead of 1, 2, 2. That's something I learned from Kent Beck, the author of TDD. He calls it calling the shots, which is literally what I'm doing. Before you run a test or before you execute a snippet of code, try to predict what will happen. So if it doesn't match up with what actually happens, you have a problem in your mental model. You have a misunderstanding of what's actually happening. Okay, so are we calling it correctly? I see 1, 2, 2, which is the expected, and I see 1, 2, 0, which is the default case. So now we can write some code to make this test pass. So that means implementing the nearest category. I think I like the idea of separating this in a function. So we grab a category or the playtime of a category. And this is, or if we have nothing, default to 0. But instead of defaulting to 0, I would like to default to the next best category. I'm thinking ahead a bit, and I see an ugly if-else statement in my future. But that's actually not a problem, I think. So let's write a top-level private function here, or in the module at least. Next best playtime. Given a search result, or no, the new record maybe? The type we defined, so it's called playtimes. And it returns a decimal option because we don't always have playtime. Let's make the compiler happy. I tried to indent is on new line, but my formatter says no, so cool. We need not only playtimes, but we need the current category or the next category, but we don't have a next category. And I'm glad we kept the union type at the beginning of this refactoring session, because now I would like to indicate the category and an enum or a union type, sorry. Makes a lot of sense to use, so let's just give it the current category. Which is a playtime, singular, and that can be one of the... Ooh, no, it's a category, sorry. Even better name for the concept. Okay, so I have no idea how this will look or what this will look like, so I'm just gonna try the simplest thing that could possibly work. I see an if else in my mind, so I'm writing an if else. If current category equals main story, then we should try to look up the... This is going to be recursive, isn't it? I think so. Current category is main, then we try to look up the... It's the other way around, I'm sorry. Let's start with the most heavy weight of all categories and go one step back. So if we're completionists, if we're handling the completionist case, we should look at the main and extras case. And this is a decimal option. But as I said, we want to do this recursively because it can be that completionist is empty and main and extras is empty, but main story category is filled in. So I'm gonna use literal recursion here. It's bounded. We know it's at least, or at max 2 recursive calls, and in F# recursion is not really that expensive, or at least not if you write your code tail recursively, then magic happens and stack frames get reused and you won't get exploding stacks if your recursion goes very deep. But anyway, so main extras, or if we don't find anything, and that's something we've seen a couple of times now, we go recursively into this record with the main and extras category. And what? We're expecting this to return a decimal option. Main and extras is a decimal option, and if it's a decimal option, return it. Otherwise, I don't see what the problem is here actually. When in doubt, extract variables. So this should give us the exact same error. Cool. What is it saying? The type decimal option does not match the type decimal. Why does it thinks T is a decimal? Yeah. Has to be a better way of doing this. What am I looking for? I'm looking for the inverse of a dot map. A dot map will dig into the option, and if it's sum, it will apply a transforming function or a mapping function. And if it's none, it will do nothing. I want to do the exact opposite. If it's none, I want to do something. I want to transform that to a none. How do you do that? How do you do that? We can pattern match on it, and yeah, when in doubt, to drop back a level of abstraction, because if it's hard for me, it's gonna be hard for me in a week from now. So let's match on playtimes dot main extras. If we have a value, we return the value. If we have no value, we do the thing we are recursively looking at. There we go. And this we have to do for both completionist and main and extras. And for the main and extras, no, and for the main story, we have nothing to fall back on, so then it's a none. So actually this if statement makes more sense to refactor to a match as well, a pattern match. So let's match on current category. And if it's completionist, then we do what we're seeing here. If it's main extras, we do a lookup of the main extras of the main. So we look up main story, and if we find main story, I'm just first gonna have the compiler shut up because I don't like. Okay, so this is something we have not fixed yet. I don't like being in thinking and being in a non-compiling state. So okay, now everything is compiling. Let's take a look again. We're looking for the next best playtime in a playtimes record given the category. If the current category is completionist, then we try to read main and extras. If we have something, we say, cool, that's it. And otherwise, we go a step down, or we call recursively for main and extras, which is the second case we will end up here. If we are in the case that we tried main and extras but didn't find anything, we want to go a level back to main story. Yes, if we find something cool. If we don't find main story, well, too bad. We can't do it any better than that. And in the main story case, should we get there, we also don't know what to do. Now, this will probably work. And maybe this is something to test exhaustively because it's really confusing. It's really confusing me already. So maybe it is a function we want to test exhaustively. This actually looks like something cool to use property-based testing on, not just writing the test cases yourself and thinking of every possible edge case in the world, but having an algorithm generate test cases for you and try to like disprove properties. Which is also a really cool way of writing automated tests. But maybe not today. This looks like it might work. I'm just gonna hope for the best, plug it in, and write some more unit tests for this next best thing because I'm not 100% sure that it's doing what I want it to do. So instead of defaulting to 0, we want to default to the next best playtime, which is a function call given search result of playtimes. And the current category is main story. Right? Right. No. Oh yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's not option.default value. I've never had to match on an option type. Up until now I always used the option dot module functions. So this is throwing me for a loop a bit. Oh no. Let's take a look at the functions in the option module. I thought I had an epiphany. I did not. F# NSDN option module. Let's go look at the API a bit. So we need something that takes an option, takes another option in the case that we don't have a value for it. Oh, this is not the module definition. Where is the module definition? Or the documentation for the module? Ah, that's better. Is the only way to navigate the documentation by scrolling through a list of functions? Yes, okay. So it's actually the inverse of a map and a bind. And I know that for the result type you actually have that. Let's take a look at that function. Result.map. Or it's something similar at least. It's called map error and it does something in the non case. Okay, but that's not really what we need right now. So we need something that takes one option and a second option in case we find nothing. My mind is totally blanking. So this is what we were trying to use, but it's not really correct. Gets the value of the option, otherwise returns the specified default value. That's not what we want. Oh, this looks better actually. Default width. Gets the value. No, we don't want to dig into the option. Never mind. Flatten. What does flatten do? How does this even work? Example. I see like it returns none in one case and X in the other case. How can it do that? Okay, that's for nested option types. If you have an option within an option, you can smoosh them. Okay, that's not what we need. None. Oh, this is actually better. So if we have a none, we provide a state, and otherwise we provide a function. Nah, that's a bit roundabout. You know what? We're just gonna write our own. Function. Yeah, because I don't find the correct one in here. No. Okay, let's write it. We gave it our best effort. I'm just gonna put it right here because it's only used in this context. So it's if we have a sum, we return sum. So actually you're just gonna extract a function doing this. So in F#, the order of your definitions matters. So if you define a function below of where you need it, it won't work. So let's put it above it. If none, option if none, and it takes let's make that a generic. How do you do that again in F#? I can just use I think a quote to define a generic type. So we give it a in case of none option and another option, which is the option we want to match on. How would we call that? Let's call the first one if none, and the other I don't know what we would call that. If someone has a suggestion chat, I'm open for suggestions. So match the subject. That's a very bad name. With if we have nothing, we take the if none, and otherwise we return the value. This looks like something that has to exist. But my mind is totally blanking and we look through the MSDN docs without any success. So let's grab it. So this is actually what we want to do here. Or let's write it in a pipeline style. So playtime.main extras. Or if there is none, do the recursive call. makes sense. Okay. Yeah, same here. So let's do the main story. Or if there is none, let's do the next best for main story. Oh no, let's do none. Almost wrote a bug for code that we don't even know works yet. Okay, this is a bit more concise. I like where it's heading. And here we should do the same option if none thing. Why? Why don't you compile? What am I missing here? It's the exact same error. That's funny. What? So next best playtime returns a decimal option. This thing takes a... Is this a decimal option? Yes, it is. Let's extract this in a variable again, because I don't see what's going wrong. So the next best thing is this. And we take the main story or the next best thing. What is not going as expected? So do I expect this to be a decimal option? I totally do. Do I expect this to be a decimal option? I totally do. They're both decimal options. So why is this? Oh yeah, of course. Oh my god. Okay, now I see what's happening. We can't add a decimal and an option of a decimal. So instead of replacing option default value, we should... or we don't return an option in this thing, or we handle the case where we don't return anything, which can still happen. So actually this is what we're trying to do. Okay, now everything makes sense in the world again. That threw me for a loop for more than 10 seconds. Whoa. So is this still readable? I don't really like it. I don't like having to invent a utility function, so that already is like an alarm in my head. Can we do better? Can we do something with the default thing? Probably we can. But I don't see it right now, so let's first make the test pass and then we can take another look. And same for the completionist category. Okay, so in the completionist. Actually, this is okay, the code is symmetrical and I like code that is symmetrical, but actually we know in this case, we know for a fact that, yeah, if you look at the code, what will this do? It'll just say, okay, we're looking for main story. It'll drop in this pattern match and it'll say, okay, it's none. So in this case, we actually don't have to do this. We know for a fact that it'll be none, so it'll default to this 0. Yeah, it's late, my brain is fried, so that might be an invalid assumption, but I think we can get rid of this line of code without changing anything functionally or from a behavioral standpoint. But let's go with it. This was, or like the last 10 seconds of my reasoning is actually, for me, a good indication that I should stay with testing on this level. If I only test this little helper function, I'll miss all this crazy option pipe magic, which is probably where bugs go to hide themselves. Okay, so that works. I'm gonna be a bit more thorough in this, exhaustive in the tests for these kind of cases. So let's grab one more. what was the case we were just discussing? The case where we have no main story. So we should default to 0. Let's do that. Collection, missing categories. The missing category is our main story, which I don't think will happen in real life. It can happen, so let's do it. And let's do all 3 cases. So this is the, let's just make them symmetrical again, so you can see where the this test case differs from the template we have, like all the other tests. So we have one where the third is missing, we have one where the first is missing, and let's write one where the second is missing as well. Now we are generating all the test cases by hand, so maybe dive into could have dived into the property-based testing world, but that's something for another time. The missing category is completionist. Perfectly reasonable scenario, because we have seen this in the real world. Main and extras. I don't think we'll ever see this scenario in real world, but okay. So this should default to 111. Completionist missing should default to 122, yes. 113, yes. And if main story is missing, we have 0, 2, 3. Yeah, I think these are. Let's do a double check, because I'm not sure about the code I wrote, so we better be sure about the tests we wrote. Yes, and then we should drop to the next best category, which is main extras. Exactly. The missing is main and extras. In that case, we should drop to main story. Exactly. And if we have no value for main story in one of the games, we drop to a 0 value for that game. Yes. If everything turns green, which it does, great. Then we can get rid of this, because we know this is actually not needed. And let's run them again. I'm not happy about this part. Or I could live with it if we didn't have to do this. I'm gonna be like awake in my bed all night thinking of is there no library function? Have I not done this in the before? Doing a map error kind of thing for an option. It's weird that this does not exist. Okay, so yeah, that assumption was true. Here we do have to go one back for the main story, or nothing if you don't have it. Okay, let's keep it like this. I'm happy enough to leave it as is. Everything is green. So I'm just gonna check in. I don't even need to run my end-to-end scenario. I'm pretty comfortable. We implemented the next best category in case of missing playtimes during a tally. There we go. I think we might be feature complete, actually. There was one thing I wanted to do before running the app for realsies and seeing how many hours we spent playing video games. So we're getting really close, but I would like to do one more thing, which is not the whitelist, moving that into a file. That's boring, but I would like to see if we can write at least one more test, so that instead of having to run the app and waiting 3 minutes, I can get a bit faster feedback on whether my entire application is working somewhat as expected. For really big enterprise, like web APIs, whatever, for big apps, I use two kinds. One is like a real end-to-end smoke test, like really starting up the app and seeing whether or not I can navigate through like a minimal happy path. Or at least if the app we're building supports it, because if you're doing building a trading app for bazillionaires and you can only do like transactions for $1,000 minimum, stuff like that, of course you cannot do that in a real, or at least not with real dependencies, with real brokerages and real accounts. So that does not make sense. But for little apps, running them end to end is perfectly fine. So I think maybe an end-to-end test for a really small collection, like a collection with only one video game, that might be something I would like to invest in. And I think it's only 10 minutes of work. So I'm going to do that. One end-to-end test. I'm not going to bother with how I would write a hexagonal, or how I would design my application in a hexagonal architecture, or a, what is it called? A clean architecture, and then write like really fast unit tests without API calls and stuff like that. I don't think we need to go through that much overhead for an application this small. So one small end-to-end test for a baby collection, and then we're ready for the big finale. Where will we write this test? I think end-to-end tests deserve their own place. They have to be, or at least they have to be separate from your unit tests or your really fast tests. For example, when you run your, or at least when I set up deployment pipelines, I run my, or even CI pipelines, when I set them up, I separate the fast from the slow tests, and the tests that need something like a database or a file system, I like to keep them separate, and I like to run them later on in the pipeline. So when I commit my code, or when teams commit code and push them to Git or whatever, or GitHub, CI server picks it up, runs the unit tests, and if those fail already, we just get like, okay, stop, this build is invalid, cannot go to production. And only when that gate like is green, we run the slow tests, we start spinning up databases, we start reading files, stuff like that. So that's why I will also create a new module here, and even a separate file. Maybe we need to structure our solution a bit. Can I add a folder in an F# solution? And can I put it like somewhere below? I mean, can I put a test folder down here and have it reference all my source code? I've never actually done that. Let's give it a try. Let's create a tests folder. Now, can I drag this down? Because again, the order of... no, you cannot drag this down. That's interesting. So can I don't think I can put my tests. Can I? Can I put my tests in here and will they still compile? I don't think so. Because, or did something change with the order of or the order that files get compiled? There used to be a time where you could not do this. Oh, there we go. You could not do this because even the order of files matters in an F# project. Yeah, so now because we have this folder, this gets bumped up and it does not know where to find the Groovy module. I think I can't even open it. No, it has no idea what it means with this module, which is defined right here. It's lower in the compilation order. So let's hit reset out of there. The type system in F# is really powerful, and the type inference is really powerful. You don't have to specify types all that often, actually, if you don't want to, which is pretty cool, but you have to live with some trade-offs like this. Order of your files matters. Okay, I'm not gonna worry too much about it for a small app like this. In a real world, I would have maybe even a different project containing my unit tests. But just for now, let's create a new file with our end-to-end tests. Yeah, sure. Let's call that end-to-end tests. What do we need? We need xunit as a test runner. We need unquote as well. And we can write our tests in here. Just a fact. I'm just going to use the same syntax we've been using for the unit tests because I really like the fact that you can write English sentences as a test case name or a test method name. Okay, they should compile. So what will we do? Can run the app for a very small collection. And running the app really means reading a file, doing an HTTP call to howlongtobeat.com, tallying up the results, and like giving us these results. Let's maybe not do console interaction, but let's run everything up until the tallying up, or including the tallying up of results. So let's go to our main method, which means that these end-to-end tests have to be the last file in our... Oh, okay, yeah, that's what you can do. You can right-click and say, move this code down, or this file. Alt down arrow. Can you do that with a folder? Because then it makes sense again. Oh, you can do that with a folder. Okay, I am going to put it in a folder then. You learn something new every day. So you can have a test folder. Of course, it's already in my file system. Oh, I hate Visual Studio. No, it's not Visual Studio's fault, I guess. It's the way project files get handled in .NET. Okay, let's get rid of this test folder and recreate it in Visual Studio. Why? Okay, there we go. Add new folder, tests. And let's drag it down. Are you kidding me? I could drag this down a second ago. Now it won't. Is it because it is empty? It could be because it is empty. Let's put some files in there. It prompts you, like, it can take a really long time to move a file. I hope not. It's a simple file system operation. Okay, can I move this folder now? Hallelujah. I'm really curious why or how this works behind the scenes. Does it like flatten the folder structure and have somewhere in this project file a sequence of all the files disregarding the folder structure? I don't actually know how this works behind the scenes. Oh no. Okay, so main method must be the final thing in your project. But I would like to test what is in my main method right now, so we're going to need yet another module containing like this function we want to test. Cool. So let's add a new file above our tests. Sure, I'm gonna call that. What do people typically call like the business logic or their main code that is not the main method of your app? I'm gonna call it app, which is what do we want to do in our end-to-end test? Do we want to do the whitelist? I don't really care. Do we want to parse the CSV file? Yes. So let's actually take everything and let's do the tally, but let's not print the results. So extracting this in a method. in a separate module so we can test it. I don't know what the dependencies or the input arguments will be, so let's just copy paste it. It is argv. I don't want to do that here. I just want to get the CSV path as an argument. So let's just move that from there to there. So now it's an input argument. And let's return the total times. Clean is also a dependency. Yes, it's a dependency. So let's provide it as a function as well. So now we're almost migrating towards a hexagonal architecture. The only difference is that there's still some reading of a CSV file and reading of or calling HTTP endpoints. Parallel with throttle is something in the NuGet package async something. Let's. I'm a bit disappointed by the refactoring support. That's why you see me manually messing around and copy pasting snippets of code. I have ReSharper installed, but ReSharper is not the best friend for F# developers. Or it's a very limited feature set. You can rename variables, you can run your tests, and I think that's almost it. Okay, so we have a cleaner dependency and we have the groovy CSV path dependency. Or we could like provide the parsed file as well, but it's an end-to-end test, so no. Okay, let's use this in our main method as well. So we parse the, or we read the argument. Yes, we do app.run given a clean function and the groovy CSV path, and everything else can go. And this is total times. Let's call it tally because it's actually the return type. Yep, or the thing we are returning. So ooh, that's not the thing we did. Huh? What was here before? Okay. It is a tally. Oh, finished game. Sorry, that's something completely different. Do we want to have the finished games as output? Do we need to have it? Yeah, why not? Let's do a tuple containing our entire collection even. So nah, let's not worry too much about it. It's the end of the series for this app. We're almost done. I'm really curious about my actual playtimes, so I'm just gonna have to return this. So it's a clean refactoring or a mechanical refactoring. We're not doing any behavior changes. There we go. So in theory, we have not done anything except extract our main method or the body of our main method into a separate function, which we can now test in isolation. To verify, let's quickly run this thing. Quickly being the operative word. I think there is a Steam sale going on. I'm being spammed by the Steam library. Oh yeah, it is almost Black Friday. That's probably why. So far I managed to buy nothing at all. I don't need anything, so why splurge? This appears to still be working. I'm not gonna wait for the entire collection. I'm gonna trust in the compiler. We haven't broken anything, so let's commit this, extract it. Nope, I haven't run my tests yet. Extract main functionality into a separate module so we can test it. Okay, our end-to-end test is already green. That is super easy. But now let's actually implement that test, write the test. So let's open the runner module, the new one, or the app module, sorry. Can you not? Can you not open inside a LED binding? Probably you can't. Okay. One thing we need to do is have a CSV file, and we have no CSV file other than the huge file. So let's create one. How can we read a CSV file? Relative path, have it in the binary output, just as we would do in a C# code base. That's probably the easiest. Yeah, no, yeah, I think so. So let's create a CSV file here. I'm just gonna call it end-to-end.csv. So that's a CSV file for end-to-end tests. I think there is a magical button where you can see all files. There we go. So here is the new CSV file. Let's add it to the solution, or to the project, sorry. What would the video game be? If you were to think of a video game, which one should we put into our end-to-end tests? I'm thinking something in the line of Super Mario, Zelda, Tetris. Tetris I don't have in my collection, I think. Let's look for Super Mario. Odyssey, that's one of the latest ones. Yeah, I'm happy with Super Mario Odyssey. Super Mario Odyssey it is. It will be the one game we will test very much. So new keyboard, have to figure out the commands to do end. Okay. So we have, does it end with an empty line at the bottom? Yes, it does. Okay. Do I, how, interesting. Can I not make it a copy to bin folder? Yes, you can. Copy of newer, that's good enough. So that will copy the CSV file to the binary folder, and then we can just use a relative path in our end-to-end test. I hope. So it should work if we just do end-to-end groovy.csv. In our clean function, we don't have to clean anything, I hope, for Super Mario Odyssey. It's not an exceptional case, so we just provide the ID function, which is the coolest function ever. It takes an X or a value and it returns that exact value, so it doesn't do much. Yeah, so this should return a tally for one game, and it should be the playtimes for Super Mario Odyssey. So let's look at the playtimes for Odyssey. It's somewhere in these ranges, 12.5, 27, 62. Is that what we get? What is results actually? List of games and a tally, cool. So let's just pattern match on that and extract the values of the tuple. And let's just see whether we can create a correct or parse the game. So game dot, why is this not working? Oh, it's games, sorry. So it should have one value, so we can do list dot 0. Can you do list dot single, list dot? No, that's to create a list. Is there a function that checks whether a list only has one item? Yeah, a length. Okay, let's use that. So we should have one game. The game should be Super Mario. So let's write a test for that. First game. That's new. You couldn't do like indexing without really weird syntax before, but now you can. It should be something like Mario something something. And the results should be in the line of what we saw. So the whatever completionist and for a test I don't mind grabbing the value of an option, not doing like the option.map magic. That's not really necessary in a test. And I don't remember the completionist playtime. My formatter is screwing the syntax still, so let's do the old syntax for indexing. And what is the problem here? We need an equal sign. Sorry. Oh, it's already a decimal, of course, because we tally up the results. Don't want to say equals because this is an end-to-end test we will be keeping. So I just want to say it's somewhere roughly between 50 and 100 hours. That's good enough. Especially with like tests that depend on something that is not entirely in your control. You don't want to have that many tests that handle like the real world like that. But sometimes you want them and sometimes you do need them. And then I like to write my assertions liberally. You know that things will change and you don't want to keep fixing tests when, I don't know, someone out there decides to finish a game faster than you expect. That brings the averages down. So that's why I'm doing this false between this kind of assertion. We took a very big step. We wrote this entire test in one go without trying to parse the CSV file, so I'm curious whether or not we'll get the green first. No, we will not get the green because there's definitely a problem in the title, which is good. Always see your test fail. Oh no, it's even worse. It cannot find the file. It looks like it's looking in the correct folder though. It's looking in the bin debug. So why is that file not in there? I have a copy.newer on there. Let's go look. Let's go look at that actual folder. This is programming, folks. Noodling around with irrelevant details instead of the actual business problem you're trying to solve. Yeah, I don't see end-to-end groovy.csv in here. Right? Right? How is this possible? Is it nested in a folder? Oh dear, it's nested in a folder. Okay. I did not know the copy to output thing did that. Okay, but that's something we can live with. So let's put the folder name here as well. That should work. Or at least we should get a bit further down the pipe. Of course, /t is not something you want to see in a string. So either we have to escape the t or we have to do this @ sign, which I don't know actually what the @ sign is called. How do you... Let's try to Google that. MSDN string escape @. It allows you to write strings without escaping characters. Yes, that's what we're doing here. Verbatim string literal, okay. No, that's not a string. That's not what I'm talking about. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. So instead of escaping, you can just do @string and then you can write the literal paths and the literal HTML without having to escape. It runs for 4 seconds, so it's a really slow test. Groovy Mario, but it should be Super Mario Odyssey. That all looks in the range of expectations, or we were expecting this. So I guess if this is green, we can run it for the entire collection and finally get an answer to the question. How long have I spent playing video games? How many hours? Quick, it's not really the word here, but you know what I mean. The build and test cycle is really slow. I'm not blaming Visual Studio, I'm blaming my hardware. I'm getting a new laptop in a couple of weeks, so I hope that will fix everything. Whew, finally. No, speaking too soon. Oh, there we go. It takes 3 seconds, which is really slow for a test, but for this one and only end-to-end test in our entire for our entire app, I can live with it. So let's commit, let's push, and let's run it for realsies. So let's go to the main method that has been cleaned up now. We can get rid of some imports here. So we know how many games, and we have a tally. Let's just print the entire tally object. I don't know. I know the sprint f and the format string thing. I don't know how string interpolation interacts with record types. How will this print the tally record? One way to find out is to run it, I guess. If it wants to. It does want to. Cool. And we're off. I think after this, if this works, I don't think I have a lot of things to do for this app. Or at least we got the answer. I played around with Visual Studio 22. I know how many hours I played video games. I've seen F#6 in action. So the goal for this series has been completed. So I think I'm gonna take a couple of days off and start streaming the Advent of Code next month, which is a really fun series of programming challenges. It happens every year in the month of December. It's pretty big. The last couple of years, I think there's already a lot of developers competing, or not competing, playing. Let's go take a look at the actual numbers. But if you like programming, if you like programming puzzles, or if you want to learn a new programming language, the Advent of Code is an amazing initiative. And it's only a week from now. It starts on the 1st of December. Let's take a look at the previous years to see how many people played. For 2020, yeah, sure. How do I go to 2020 leaderboards? Oh, that's probably what I'm looking for. I hope the site will be faster on the first day of the puzzles. Okay. So day 1, that's the first puzzle. It's an easy one. We have 164,000 people playing along. That's great to see. Really fun to see how many people are enjoying these puzzles. If you look at the final day, it's 10%. So it's a lot less. Is it 10% or even 1? Yeah, 10%. But these are great puzzles. If you've not heard about Advent of Code and you are watching programming streams, live coding streams, check them out. They're really cool. It's still running. Oh boy. It's not production ready, this app. Like the printing to console is not multi-thread save. We handle exceptions with a hard-coded list, so I would not open source this or I would not push this out into an app store. But it was fun. Good enough playing around with it. One thing I still have not figured out is the order of games in this groovy file export. It's not chronological, it's not on release date, it looks pretty random to me. What does that mean? 10,869 hours. How many days is that? Okay, so that's more than a year. That's more than a year of playing video games. That's actually quite a lot. I knew it was a lot, but I didn't know it was a year worth of time of my life. So yeah, 1.25. Impressive. I'm still gonna keep playing video games though. It's fun. I think this is a very good point to stop the series. We have the answer. We finished a little tiny app in F#6 and using Visual Studio 22. So I hope you got something out of this series. It was fun programming along with you, and I'll see you next month for the Advent of Code. Bye bye.